once we have a refined gesture, what I want to do is make sure, through a system of measuring that's more accurate, that my drawing is as proportionally accurate as possible. Right? So what I'm going to do is use a string as a measuring tool. There's a lot of advantages to using something like this. One is I can make that string as long as I want to. Two, because it's thin, when I hold it up, it's not going to block a lot of what I'm looking at. So by comparison, this may be something that a lot of people have seen somebody who's drawing do. They're holding up a pencil, right? They're trying to take some kind of measurement. Well, I'm doing the same thing, but instead of having something that's going to block a lot of what I see, I'm going to take a simpler tool. It's also nice and compact. You can put it in your pocket. I like the string also for a few reasons. One, I like to tie a knot, and I also like to get my string to be dirty. There's a reason for that. It's because when I measure, I then need to take that measurement and apply it, right? So if I have a dirty string, for example, I can make a mark. That allows me to see how the measurement is being applied to my drawing. So I think this is an advantage. I want to use tools that can give me as much information or as many purposes as possible. What I'm going to do here is I want to compare one element to all elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one part of my drawing, one part of my subject matter that simply says, if this subject matter is this big, how many times does that subject matter stack from the highest point to the lowest point? In other words, how many of these do I need to put on top of each other so that it gives me an accurate height? It could be something as maybe as common as using your head to draw your entire body. How many heads fit from here all the way to the tip of your toes? My head becomes a single unit of measurement. Here, I'm going to use the white box on the top. This is going to be my single unit of measurement, and I'm going to call that a 1. So I'm going to measure how many of those edges fit from the highest point to the lowest point. Remember, my lowest point is here, right? And then I'm also going to use this same measurement to establish or to see how many fit from the furthest edge of the left to the furthest edge of the right. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm standing in the same place every single time. I'm going to take the string, I'm going to put it between my thumb and index finger, and then I'm going to take my other hand, thumb, index finger, and slide it up or down in relationship to trying to frame that height. So what I'm going to do when I apply this to my subject matter from a distance, right? Because I cannot walk up to all of my subject matters and put my hands on them and say, oh, this is this many ones tall. If I was drawing a landscape, right, or a city from a distance, I can't walk up to the buildings and start measuring the buildings. And I'm sure if you're drawing a person, they probably don't want you going up to them and touching them and being like, oh, you're X number of heads tall. So we're going to measure from a distance. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to put my left thumb visually on the top of that box and my right thumb on the bottom corner of that box. I'm doing that visually, okay? So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to stack. I'm basically going to move my hands like this. this is where my thumb was, my bottom thumb, right? As I move my hand down, I need to make sure that I bring that top thumb to where my bottom thumb was. Make a little mark. Now I know where to put that thumb, and I'm counting, right? Counting how many is that. So first I need to measure visually, and then I need to see how those measurements compare to my drawing. What is accurate is what I see. What I draw, we'll see, right? So I count right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and about a half. When I look at this and measure it, I see that I need about 6.5 of these to get to the bottom. Now, I want to make something clear. The scale of my drawing and the size in which I am drawing any object can be very different than how I see it. When I was holding this up, I saw that that little box on top was visually this big. But if I do that there, you can see that that box is twice that size. So this unit of measurement does not translate in the same scale, right? I need to adjust the scale of this in relationship to how big or small my drawing is. This is just a unit of measurement that tells me that I need 6 of these to get, or 6.5 of these to get to here, right? So now I'm going to check my drawing. I drew that edge this big. Let me do it this way so you can see. Okay. So I'm going to repeat and see how many of those fit in my drawing. Is my drawing accurate, or do I need to make an adjustment? So 1, 2, there's my little knot coming into good use. 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit will be here. So there's a subtle error, but you can see it's not that far off, right? So my adjustments are probably going to be minimal. Like I said before, I'm probably going to make a correction here and there, but visually when I was drawing, it looked fairly accurate. This amount on a drawing of this size may not necessarily be enough for your eye to catch, perfectly 100% of the time. So you need some kind of tool that will help to check, right? It's like a check to see if those proportions are correct or not. And then we make those corrections. Just like I move that box over, I can elongate things a little bit if I need to. So that is a subtle correction that I have made. And I haven't committed too much to this where I can make a change, right, without over working or fixing too many things. So now that I've measured this in height, and I always like to do this 2 times just to make sure. Once I do it in height, I'm going to measure the entire width. I'm going to use the same unit of measurement, right? The only difference is that I am going to turn it horizontally. And I'm going to go from the widest areas. So in this case, you see the furthest edge to the left is here, furthest edge to the right is here. Right? So I can do this in a straight line. You may not always have that, but again, I'm trying to find the simplest path possible. So again, standing in the same place, make sure your arms are extended. That way you don't change how this looks by moving your arms back and forth. If your arms are extended every single time, that's going to be more visually accurate. If you're standing or sitting in the same place, that's also going to be more consistently accurate. I want to avoid changing my reference to my subject matter because that's going to change the way it appears to my eye and the way that it measures. So I have a reference here on the floor, I'm putting my foot there, I'm extending my arms, I'm taking that measurement, taking it means that I'm reframing it, then I'm holding it, I'm not changing it, and now I'm just bringing it down horizontally. And I'm going from the furthest edge to the left and counting. 2, 3. I get 4 and a little bit. Right? So now I'm going to compare it. I take the 1 again, and I'm doing the exact same thing. It's like I'm tracing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's about what I saw. A little bit. This is a little bit longer than that. It does not complete a whole 1. It's like 1 1/4. Right? So I feel and I've measured this width and this height, and I have a pretty accurate picture window of height to width. So my drawing is going to fit inside of this rectangle. What this red box represents again is that this is the boundaries or how tall and wide my drawing is going to be. So any change that happens to my drawing is going to happen within these boundaries. Okay. So this is my 1. I'm going to go across from the widest point on the left, or the furthest edge on the left, to the furthest edge on the right. So I'm going to compare the width and see how many times my 1 repeats from left to right. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit. So it's about a quarter or a third of a 1. This is how I saw it when I was looking at the boxes. That I saw that much of the string going outside of my box. So this space here, this little space here, is really what I mean by a little bit. It's about 1/3 of this entire 1 right there. So I'm just copying what I see onto my paper. I'm just literally drawing the string.